Hello and welcome to the Vibe with 3 and 5 podcast. I'm Cam,
And I'm Emily.
and today we're going to be doing a recap of the first few rounds of the NCAA tournament as well as some news later in this episode. So let's get right into it. So, first of all, we're going to be covering the first four games and then getting into the round of 64. So, the first four games, Pitt, they ended up beating Mississippi State, which I personally love to see that. Diaz Graham, both of the Diaz Graham twins did amazing in place of Federico. So I was happy to see that. And Arizona State beat Nevada.
We saw FDU beat Texas Southern and Texas A&M Corpus Christi beat SEMO. So lots of interesting games going on there. Now going into the round of 64. So for the South, we have Alabama beating Texas A&M Corpus Christi. I feel like everyone kind of saw that coming. Alabama has a great team this year. And we also saw
Yep.
Maryland beat West Virginia.
Yep. Some other games that happened. San Diego State beat Charleston. Personally, I had San Diego State. I know a lot of people had Charleston, so that was a good game. And then Furman upset Virginia, which was very disappointing in my opinion.
Oh my
Kihei Clark
gosh.
literally sold the game. He literally gave the ball to the other team. Like the other team was literally in disbelief. As we mentioned before in previous episodes, Kihei Clark is a previous chump of the week, and it
Mm-hmm.
just he maintained that behavior in the tournament. He literally sold the game. And then,
That was
although
crazy.
I had NC State winning, I'm glad to say that they lost to Creighton. So goodbye, DJ Burns. You're out of the tournament in the first
Yeah,
round. So you love to see that.
that's funny. All right, we saw Baylor beat UCSB. Baylor is a good team. And then we saw Missouri beat Utah State.
And then one of the big upsets of the first round, Princeton beat Arizona. Crazy upset. And Wildcats of a two seed has lost 2 years in a row. So last
Wow.
year we saw St. Peter's beat Kentucky. This year Princeton beat Arizona. I mean, what is with Wildcats and two seeds losing? It's just crazy.
Yeah, really, very interesting. A lot of these games. I know so many of them have been really so close, like 3 point games. I mean, it's
Hmm.
crazy. Talking about the East now, we have FDU beating Purdue. So after this game, there is no longer any perfect brackets for anyone in the world. So that just shows how insane this upset was. I mean, I know Cam and I both had Purdue in the championship winning actually. So we were really upset over Purdue's loss there, but man, that was a crazy, crazy game. And FAU beat Memphis as well.
Yeah, talking about the FDU game, it's only the second time in tournament history that a 16 seed has upset a one seed. The first time it was UCSB or some weird school. They beat Virginia in 2018. Um, but yeah, only the second time
Crazy.
a 16 seed has beat a one. So really crazy. It was very unfortunate. Um, Duke ended up beating my Oral Roberts team. Unfortunately, I was going with them pretty highly into the tournament. Unfortunately, they lost in the first round. I was kind of upset about that. And then the Ragin' Cajuns of Louisiana were defeated by Tennessee. Unfortunately, so some more good games, but unfortunately for my bracket, they didn't go too well.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think these next ones we actually did predict on our bracket. We had Kentucky beating Providence, which did end up happening, and then Kansas State beat Montana State. So those are two pretty good games.
Yep. And then Michigan beat USC. I know I had USC. I think Emo had Michigan State. And
Mm-hmm.
then
Yeah.
Marquette beat Vermont. So we had that one. I think that was pretty much a no-brainer from everybody. But yeah, Marquette beat Vermont. Shifting
Mm-hmm.
into the Midwest Division, another no-brainer pick. Houston beat Northern Kentucky. A real shocker there. I'm surprised that anybody even picked that game. And then an 8-9 game that was actually a good game. Auburn beat Iowa.
Yeah. Next game was pretty interesting. Miami ended up beating Drake, and then Indiana beat Kent State. That was a pretty close game. So
We were right
Yeah.
on both of those as well, Miami and Indiana advancing. And then my Pitt Panthers beat Iowa State, and I was watching that game and it was crazy. It was literally, I think, like 25-5 at one point. Like Pitt
Oh
was
my
crushing
goodness.
them, but then Iowa State came back, but Pitt ended up winning by like I think 19 points, so I was very happy with that. And then Xavier beat Kennesaw State, so another no-brainer pick there. And then Ema, why don't we get into the unfortunate
All right.
happenings of the Penn State game?
I hate to say this, but Penn State won their first game and beat Texas A&M. You guys know I'm not a big fan of Penn State. I was very upset to see that, but don't worry, they later lose their next game, so it's all good. And Texas beat Colgate, so unfortunately, our upstate New York team is out of the tournament. But hey, Colgate had a good run, so yeah, good for them making it as far as they did.
Shout out to Mo Bamba. He went to Texas, so you'll be able to see that.
Yes, thank you.
Shifting into the West Division, Kansas beat Howard. Surprise, surprise there. I mean that Howard team, so good. I mean, I thought they were gonna upset Kansas. But in all seriousness, Kansas is a 1 seed. Nobody should have picked Howard, and I don't think a lot of people did. And then Arkansas beat Illinois. I really like what I saw from this Arkansas team. Anthony Black, Jarrett Walsh. They're still in it. A little spoiler
Yeah.
for a little bit later. They're still in it. I really like this Arkansas team. Maybe they could pull something out being an 8 seed. You never know, but they've looked really good so far.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. St. Mary's beat VCU. I feel like that was kind of surprising, but it is what it is. And then
Those
UConn
5-12
beat,
games are always close. Those 5-12 games.
yeah, and UConn beat Iona. So UConn is still
They're
in
still
it at this
dancing.
point in the podcast, but yeah.
Another few games, TCU beat Arizona State, which that was another play-in game. The Arizona State advanced. And then Gonzaga beat GCU, the Grand Canyon University, the college that you always see on the TV. As we said in the previous podcast about the tournament, GCU was not a basketball school, so expect them to lose, and
Exactly.
we were right.
Northwestern beat Boise State, and UCLA, surprise, surprise, beat UNC Asheville.
Yep. So now we're going to look over some coaching news. So a couple of coaches that we mentioned have taken new jobs already after their team lost. So Rick Pitino, who is a former Louisville coach, friend of Jim Boeheim, and last year, like this previous year's Iona coach, took a job at St. John's. So we might be seeing him coach against us if we play them. You never know. And then FDU coach Tobin Anderson took Pitino's job at Iona. So he led his team to the tournament. They upset Purdue, and then he takes a new job at Iona, which is very interesting. And I was saying to Emal before the podcast, before we started recording, he's going to end up taking his whole FDU team over to him, with him at Iona. That's what every coach does. And personally, I don't really care for that. I mean, you wait 4 years to play possibly, then the coach just takes his whole team over to his new school. So that's probably what's going to happen with FDU's Tobin Anderson.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. Now we're going to talk about the round of 32. It gets really interesting here. So we're going to start with the South with Alabama beating Maryland. I feel like that's another really no-brainer. Bama has a good team this year. And SDSU beat Furman.
Yeah, like Emal said, Alabama, a great team this year. I mean, they've been showing it. They've been the good 1 seed so far. So let's see if they can keep it up.
Yeah.
But Creighton ended up beating Baylor, and Princeton, again, the 15 seed Princeton beat Missouri. Princeton looks like they have something to prove. I mean, this is crazy. 15 seed winning again, going into the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
My Wi-Fi is literally so laggy.
For the East, we have FAU beating FDU, another pretty close game. I'm personally glad they won, but like I said, another good game. Cam, did you like lag out? Yeah, it's been like kind of laggy, like the last thing you said. It's that you can't. I don't know if you should.
I can hear your audio. It's just the video is frozen now.
Yeah, you're frozen on mine too. It's been like really laggy though. I feel like we should at least repeat the round of 32 part.
I agree.
Bad well, you're
Hopefully
back on my screen. It's still.
Yep, there we go. It just went back.
Okay.
Like, come on, the one day we record, like, it's got to be stupid. So gay.
Yeah, all right, we'll just start with that.
So with the coaching news, was that good? Was that part like eligible? Like, could you hear that part good?
You might want to redo it. It kind of was
Okay.
great. It was kind of laggy. Yeah, why don't you start there?
Okay, perfect. All right, moving on to some coaching news. So a couple of coaches took new jobs after the team lost, which is kind of interesting. So Rick Pitino, who's a former Louisville coach, friend of Jim Boeheim, and last year's Iona coach, so he coached this year's Iona team, took a job at St. John's. So we might see him if Syracuse ends up playing them, which we usually do at least like a couple times every few years. So maybe we'll see him coaching, and then his job was taken by FU coach Tobin Anderson. So Anderson will be coaching at Iona now, which is interesting. Like I said this to email before we started recording. I was like, he's going to end up taking his whole FDU team over to Iona, which I personally don't really care for like that. You could wait 4 years as a college kid to have your opportunity playing college basketball. And then a new coach comes in and takes their whole team from the previous school, which I personally just don't like. So FDU coach Tobin Anderson and probably his whole team will be over at Iona next year.
Now we're going to move on and talk about the round of 32 games. So a lot of good games went on, some upsets. So let's talk about that. So starting in the South, we have Alabama beating Maryland. I feel like that was not a shock to many. Alabama's a really good team this year, and they've definitely been proving it in the tournament. And then we have SDSU beating Furman.
Yeah, Alabama's been like the one good one seed it's been looking like. So glad to see them advance. And then I'm so happy. Thank you, San Diego State University, for beating Furman. Personally, I wanted them to lose literally so bad because they took out Virginia. So thank you, SDSU, for taking them out pretty early. And then we have Creighton. They ended up beating the 3-seed Baylor. And then Princeton beat Missouri. So that 15-seed Princeton is going off. They're going to the Sweet 16. I mean, you love to see it. It's crazy, very surprising.
Couple of upsets there. Now talking about the East, we have FAU beating FDU. That was a close game, but I'm glad FAU won. We saw FDU beat. Did they beat?
FDU beat Purdue.
They're the ones who beat Purdue. So, that was kind of upsetting for us. So we wanted them out, and
yeah, exactly.
FAU got the job done with that. We saw Tennessee beat Duke, another good game. I mean, Duke's not even in the Sweet 16, so that's kind of funny coming from Syracuse fans. We saw Kansas State beat Kentucky. I think a lot of people expected Kentucky to make it a little bit further, so that could have been surprising for some people, but lots of these games were, like I said, very close and really good. This next game I'm going to talk about, was really excited about. Michigan State beating Marquette. Marquette had a great team this year, and Michigan State just pulled up and got them out. It was a really close game, though, I have to say. Marquette did make a little comeback, but they couldn't finish it, and Michigan State took that win. So great game.
That was a good game.
State.
One thing I wanted to mention, though, is that I watched the end of the Tennessee and Duke game, and I was very happy to see that Duke lost because, like I said earlier, they took out my Oral Roberts team, so I'm like, they have to lose now because they took out Oral Roberts. I'm just like, we got to get the revenge tours. Like, Duke's got to get out for Oral Roberts' sake. Like, FDU had to get out for Purdue's sake. Like, I'm just like, come on. Like, everybody that took out my teams, like, you got to lose now.
I like that logic.
Moving on to the Midwest for the round of 32, Houston beat Auburn, so another 1 seed winning. Miami beat Indiana. We said that was going to be a close, good game going into it, but I think Miami beat them by a pretty good margin, which was interesting. And then, unfortunately, the Pitt Panthers run came to an end. Xavier ended up beating them, but like that, they were a playing team. They won a few games. Overall, they had a good postseason in March. So overall, good job to Pitt, especially Guillermo Diaz-Graham played amazing when they needed him. So shout out to him. And then the Lords, the Saviors, Texas University defeated Penn State. Thank you, Texas, for doing God's work and taking out Penn State University. That made our days. We were so happy after Penn State lost. So Texas, shout out to you.
Yeah, I already like Texas, and I like them a little bit more because of that. So go Texas. All right, now in the West, we have Arkansas beating Kansas. Now that Arkansas is a good team, but Kansas is a really good team. So I know a lot of people probably had Kansas in their Final Four, and Arkansas just took them out. So very interesting game. UConn beat St. Mary's. I feel like that's not as much as a surprise, but Gonzaga beat TCU. That was a good game as well. UCLA beat Northwestern. UCLA has a good basketball team, so it doesn't really surprise me.
Exactly.
There, but lots of good games going on still.
Now we're going to go into the Sweet 16 matchups. So we're going to talk about the I'm effing lagging again.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
All right. Now we're going to go into the Sweet 16 matchups. So the games that are not going to happen yet, they're going to happen, I think the 23rd is when the Sweet 16 starts. So we're going to talk about those games. So in the South Division, Alabama, the 1 seed, is taking on 5 seed SDSU. I think that'll be a good game. I personally think Alabama's going to advance. And then the 6th seed Creighton is taking on the 15 seed Princeton. And I want Princeton to beat them. I think Alabama and Princeton would be a great game to see in the Elite Eight. So you never know.
All right. For the East, we have 9 seed FAU going up against 4 seed Tennessee. So a 9 and 4 seed, I honestly feel like that game will be interesting. It could be pretty close. I almost will predict Tennessee to win, but you really never know. And then we have 3 seed Kansas State going up against 7 seed Michigan State. I also could see this being another super close game. I think I want Michigan to win that one, but I really wouldn't be bothered either way, whatever way it goes.
I agree. I'm thinking Tennessee and Michigan State. I think those are the 2 winners out of those games. So we'll have to see, obviously, but that's what we're thinking. The Midwest Division, we got 1 seed Houston facing off against 5 seed Miami. And honestly, I think this is when Houston goes down. I think Miami can take them. They looked good against Indiana, so I think they're going to keep that up. And then the 2 seed Texas is taking on the 3 seed Xavier, and I think it's pretty clear at this point who we want to win that game. We're going with Texas.
Yes.
They beat Penn State. Mo Bamba went there. You love Texas, so Texas and Miami out of that one for me.
I feel like the Midwest has a lot of really good teams in the Sweet 16 here, so
definitely
some good games to watch for sure. Now the West, we have 8 seed Arkansas versus 4 seed UConn. This will be a really good game. Cam and I both really liked what we saw out of Arkansas's team, their last game. So I kind of want them to win, but UConn is a really, really good team. So we'll have to see which way that game goes. And then we have 2 seed UCLA going up against 3 seed Gonzaga. So that will be a close one. I could see it going either way. Who knows with that, but be some interesting games. Excited to watch them.
I personally think that UCLA and Arkansas will advance out of those. At least I want Arkansas at this point. My bracket's messed up, so
Same.
I want Arkansas.
Yeah, I agree. So now we're going to talk about some other basketball news regarding Syracuse, because Orange basketball never stops here on this podcast, but we got J.J. Starling has committed to Syracuse. Thank the Lord. So we obviously tried to recruit JJ a lot last year, and he ended up going to Notre Dame instead of Syracuse, and he has decided to come back home and play for the Cuse. So I'm really excited to see how he plays, and definitely excited to have him on the team. So that's some really good news for Syracuse fans.
Definitely. I was very excited when I heard this news. Some other news is that Symir Torrence has entered the transfer portal. So him and John Boljak have both entered. There could be some other players that decide to. We're not too sure yet. But for now, Symir Torrence has entered the portal. And then some coaching news. So Coach GMAC, Jerry McNamara, was promoted to associate head coach, which is Coach Red's old job. So he's going to be Coach Red's right-hand man. And then for some reason, Alan Griffin got to keep his job. I don't really know why, but he's still an assistant coach for Syracuse basketball, which is just great. And then we have another vacancy for another coaching position, so we'll see who we bring with that position. But for now, it's been the 3 assistants that have been there, and we'll see who else we hire.
Now this news is kind of bittersweet, but we have Judah Mintz declared for the NBA draft. So, yep, he's on Cam's wall there. If you he can choose to come back to Syracuse and maintain his eligibility here, if he doesn't make it into the draft. But good luck to Judah. Thank you for everything this year. We're gonna miss you so much, if you leave us. But obviously, we want to see him in the NBA. Having a good career there. So we really do wish him the best, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with him, because he's really our go-to guard. I know we got JJ, but if Joe leaves, who knows what the team's going to look like, really.
Exactly. Like that. If Judah ends up keeping his name in the draft and going to the NBA, I could see Joe Girard taking another year. So our guards would be Joe and JJ. Obviously, we're losing Symir Torrence, so that would be somebody off the bench that we don't really have. If Judah ended up staying, it would be really the best option for Syracuse to look at. He's been so good for us. He deserves his chance in the NBA. But like that, if he ended up staying, we could go Judah and JJ. And then if Joe wanted to stay, he could come off the bench for us. That would be crazy. That would be so, so good. But like Emal said, best of luck to Judah. Nothing but the best for you. You've done amazing for us. Obviously, come on, we love Judah. We're going to miss him if he leaves, but hopefully he can make it into the NBA and do good in the NBA. That's all we hope.
Yeah, exactly.
So other than that, that's pretty much it for this episode. Be on the lookout. There'll be a weekly episode on Saturday like normal. We just figured, since we did an interview as our weekly episode this week, that we'll throw something up. We've been keeping track of March Madness. We did the whole episode with our bracket, so we figured, hey, we might as well cover the games that already happened. It's the biggest thing that's happening in sports right now. Hopefully there's some more stuff that we can cover for the weekly episode. I know it was kind of difficult to think of some stuff if we were going to do a weekly this past week, so that's why we opted to do the interview instead, upload it then. Emal, anything to add to this outro? I know I've been babbling on for a little bit.
Good. Drop in the comments the game you're most excited to watch and see. I think mine is probably going to be the Arkansas UConn game. I think
agree.
That's mine. But I want to hear your guys's, so interact in the comments.
For me, I would either say the Arkansas game or the Texas game. Both of those games are going to be good,
Yeah.
and I'm excited to see. But other than that, that's it for this episode. Make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all the normal stuff we say in the outro. Follow our social medias. It'll be in the link in the description below. Other than that, we're out. See you guys Saturday. Peace.